Hey guys, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the third boil of the 2022. No, you didn't miss it. It didn't make the first video. Well, I should say I didn't make the very first boil of the year. Long boils those were. Those were really long boils. First one was about 26 hours, and the next one was in the 30 range. Now that was not continuous boiling, but our reverse osmosis was down. And so this batch, boy, I was able to get the new RO pump came in, and man, it was a lot easier to process this time around. So third boil, we've been collecting now for about 4 days. Been kind of a slow trickle here. Sunny days up into the 37, 38 range. So on 50 taps, the biggest run we had was about 70 gallons in one day. Most of them are about 35 gallons. So we're boiling down probably 120 to 130 gallons of sap. And then I've been able to concentrate that down to around 50 gallons. And so when I can get, 60 gallons or so in a day, it's easy to process. And so want to continue a video that I made last season, and I called it Small Scale Tips, and it was pretty well received, and yet it's impossible to put all the tips into one video. I think that you guys know that. So that video was very well received. However, you can't put all the tips possible into one video. So I want to kind of talk through a few of these. And if you stuck around this long, thank you. The first tip is that as you get closer and closer to finishing, it will begin to foam up on you. The bubbles and the boiling becomes a little more tight, and you will start to see that it will actually start to foam up on you. Now they do sell a defoamer. You can get those. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them all sorts of places. The old timers would just hang a piece of pork or bacon or something like that. I've only seen pictures, but they would hang a hunk of meat above their pots, and that would drip a little bit of oil down and probably make their lunch too at the same time. And so what I do is I just put a little dab of butter, and I just put that into the pot before it starts boiling, or as it's boiling, or hour into the process. And that usually takes care of it. I've heard of other people using a couple drips of vegetable oil. And so a foamer or a defoamer definitely is helpful. It keeps you from boiling over most of the time, right? There's always that most of the time needs to be put in there. Now, once again, if you it's kind of hard to sell it as a vegan product or even advertise it as a vegan product if you put butter in it. So keep that in mind. The second tip that I would like to share with you is get your evaporator up high. I don't know if I can pop that down there, but you can see that my evaporator is a barrel stove, and my first few years it was on the ground. And at the end of a boiling day, I was exhausted. I was exhausted from bending over and having to feed that fire. Yes, to put sap into my warming pan, I have to raise that sap up pretty high, but I'm putting way more firewood in it than I'm putting sap in it. And so get that firebox up as high as you can, manageably, and you're gonna save your back. That is definitely my tip, is to raise your system up a little bit higher, especially if you're feeding it with wood all day. My next tip is don't walk away. Do not walk away. During the first, I would say half of the boiling time, usually you're okay, but you got to make sure that you're managing the sap levels, that you're not overfiring things, but don't walk away, especially as we're starting to get near the end. You see pictures all the time. I had a friend have this happen to him the other day. He thought he would just go up the road for a moment, came back, the pan was completely burned and stunk of burnt sugar, and you could see that, treat it like a 1-year-old in the bathtub. You're not going to walk away. You're going to always be hanging out. Now, probably a 1-year-old in the bathtub definitely is more precious than a little bit of sap and syrup. But you're going to have to keep your eye on this. Usually what I do is, of course, not on a snowy day like today, but I will, I rake the stones back into the driveway. I've been going in and out, bottling syrup this morning, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But do not walk away because you've invested a lot of time and energy. And it becomes more and more important to stay right with it, especially as you're getting to the end. The last tip that I would share with you guys is you gotta keep your sap cold. A lot of us are weekend warriors, and so we are really doing a lot of our boiling on Saturday and Sunday, and we're collecting all day, and we're collecting all week long. And without a doubt, that is always what I did. I would collect all week. I would have 4 or 5 5-gallon pails, and then I eventually went to 20-gallon totes. And I would collect for several days, and then I'll boil it all up. And if the temperatures aren't right, you're gonna have to find a way to keep it cold. I had a local guy tell me I spoiled a batch. Didn't realize it was spoiled, boiled it, it was sour, and I talked to him. This was my very early years, and he said, treat it like milk. Treat it like milk. Think about refrigerator temperatures, and you got to keep the sap there. And sooner or later, even milk will spoil if it's in the fridge long enough. And so you can usually look at the sap, and if it's clear, it's good. If it starts to get a little bit or ropey, it's starting to get on its way, and then it will start to yellow up. But you got to keep it cold. Now, I'm sure that if you had the means to pasteurize it of sorts, well, that would elongate it, and that would make it last a little bit longer, but that requires heating it up and cooling it down, and that's not very practical. Usually snow is our ticket to keeping sap cold. I'm sorry I'm a little lengthy here, but I figure most people aren't hanging around this long. But snow is the way to keep it cold. I usually will develop snow piles, capture snow off the north side of my barn. But if you're looking for a lot of snow, school parking lots are a good place. Your big box stores are a good place. Last season, I just rolled up to the local school with my pickup truck and filled up the bed of it. It's a little silly, but if it allowed me to get another couple weeks or another week, it was well worth that trip. So thanks for joining me. I do appreciate you guys. I appreciate you sharing your time with me. It's a busy time of year for sure, but these are some of my tips. And man, I drove by someplace yesterday and there's buckets all in the yard, and it just made me smile because this is God's gift to us. I truly believe it's one of God's gifts. And so keep on sugaring, and if you have time, click that subscribe button there and watch another video. I do appreciate it. Bye now.